911, what's your emergency?
Welcome back to That Weewoo Show, a podcast where we watch and discuss episodes of the ABC show 911. I'm Ellen.
I'm Alice.
And I'm Bex.
And welcome to Season 4.
So excited.
Here we are in Season 4. Thank you to everyone who's been listening to our previous seasons and has been sharing our social media posts and rating us on all of the platforms. We're going to get stuck into some Season 4. We've got lots of cool stuff planned for this season, since this seems to be the favourite of the people who have already watched the show, and I'm quite excited to do it as well, get into it. But before we do that, Alice, do you want to remind us what happened last season?
Yeah, so last season on 911, we survived a tsunami, a lawsuit, an illegal fight club, an awful traffic stop, a radiation fire, a brain tumour, the foster system, a train derailment, and a violent rapist. All in 18 episodes.
And we're still alive?
Still alive, yep.
In this episode, we are going to discuss the premiere episode of Season 4 titled The New Abnormal, which first aired January 18, 2021. And the official summary says that the 118 race to save lives when the Hollywood Reservoir Dam breaks. Bobby and the 118 race into action, allegedly, to save passengers on a city bus that has crashed into a building several stories in the air. Maddie must first locate and then rescue a trapped cyclist, and Athena helps an agoraphobic woman evacuate her home. Meanwhile, the team adjusts to life as first responders during the pandemic. Bobby worries if Athena is ready for field duty since recovering from her physical and psychological injuries. Chimney takes extreme precautions around a pregnant Maddie, and May begins a surprising new job. Holy shit, that's a massive promo summary.
It is. They've just basically summed up everything that was happening at the end
That's the entire
the
episode.
last
We don't
season.
even have to. Yeah, that's it.
That's it. You're
we're
welcome.
done. We don't have to talk about it. It's done.
Yeah.
Nope.
Stay tuned next week for...
I'm pretty sure that you can guess what the triggers would be based on that extensive summary, but we'll go through them anyway. Discussion of and depiction of a traumatic brain injury, a car accident, sort of. The trigger document calls it bus versus office building. I'm not sure which one comes off the winner in that. Character on the autism spectrum who identifies as a proud Aspie, which we will get into later on. Claustrophobia via the threat of being buried alive. Flashbacks to physical assault. Demi and the Dragon's favourite, gore, being a tourniquet applied to a femoral artery. Depiction of grief, collapse of a house, and natural disaster, earthquake, causes mudslide/landslide. Also depiction of post-traumatic stress disorder. There is also a very general trigger for the pandemic. So this season takes place, quote-unquote, post-2020 pandemic, but it's like a kinder, gentler, not the pandemic that the Americans lived through. Mm-hmm. It seemed to last much, much shorter, and everyone on the show is depicted as taking necessary precautions. Masks are worn. People talk about COVID. There is a depiction in this episode of a death from COVID. Sanitizer is used liberally. So if you are still a little bit iffy about living through said pandemic, Season 4 might not be the season for you.
Gee, it brought back a few things, though.
Didn't it just? Like, we still do have hand sanitizer everywhere in retail, but
yeah,
I think we've just mainly kept it because we deal with animals a lot, and so it's easier just to grab some hand sanitizer on the desk than run and wash our hands after every client interaction.
I mean, I still often see people, grabbing the sanitizer and putting it on their trolleys before they go into the supermarket and stuff like that.
Oh, I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah,
but then when was the last time I
people
went
still
to
do it here.
Although we're 5 years out from the pandemic.
Yeah, but there's still traces of it too.
Yeah. So when Season 4 started filming, so episode 1, which aired in January, was filmed September, October of 2020. So still mid-pandemic.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that a lot of what the characters are shown to be doing is just what the actors themselves would be required to do in order to come onto set.
Yeah, I absolutely think, because a lot of TV shows that were, like, airing around this time did the whole COVID thing. Like, I think I mentioned Superstore in another episode. Also had a mask season. I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine does too. And I think a lot of it was, like, yes, they were, like, mirroring the real world, but I think a lot of it was also just COVID-safe practices on set as well.
I just love the time progression. Like, okay, so this episode does that thing where it's got a number of, like, skip backs. Like, we start at the disaster, but then we skip back to an hour before, and then we skip back to 2 hours before, and then we, they keep doing it.
Yeah, it's a timey-wimey episode.
It's timey-wimey, but at least they tell us where we're going.
They tell us that it's timey-wimey.
And when we suddenly get back to present, they'll repeat a scene, or they'll do an overlap. They'll repeat the scene so that we go, oh, okay, now we're back to present. So It's timey-wimey, but it's structured timey-wimey.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate. The first thing we see in this episode is a caption that lets us know that we are in September. So there's been a 5-month time jump since the end of season 3.
Yeah.
And if you didn't get it from the caption, the needle drop for the opening of season 4 is Earth, Wind and Fire's Dancing in September.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot confirm nor deny that this actually takes place in the 21st night of September, but it's definitely September.
Which is interesting as well, because normally they sort of try and keep close to when it's airing, but it airs in January, and it's filming in September.
Yeah, but then they would have had to do that thing where they're trying to do like a weekly turnaround, which at this stage they weren't doing.
Oh, no, I know that they weren't, but they were filming in September, and so they set it in September, whereas normally, even if they're filming it in September, like, if they're airing it in January, they'll set the episode in January. Like, they're not, when they're doing the October episodes for Halloween, they film that well before. But, yeah, it's interesting that they are just setting it when they're filming it rather than when they're airing it this time.
I guess because if they set it in January, pretty much Maddie would have a baby by now.
Yeah. So I guess they had to go back in time a bit.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they had to.
Way too much would have happened off screen. They needed to bring it back to September so they could have some things still be on screen.
When I hear this song playing, I'm going back to the September song now. I just think of Justin Timberlake, because he did that version for, I think it was for the Trolls movie.
Oh,
and
I'm so sorry.
That's the one I think of. I don't know why. It's not until you said Earth, Wind and Fire, I'm like, oh, that it's got an original version. Of course it does.
Yes.
That's terrible.
Whenever I hear this song now, there was a TikTok video that was like, do you remember?
No.
And then it just stops, and then it's no. I'm like, yeah, that's
relatable.
Living with ADHD.
Anyway, we do get a bunch of shots of around LA where there's like no people, or very few people around, and the news, like someone's listening to the radio obviously, and they've got like a news anchor telling everybody it's a very good morning. The mayor's office and the CDC are reporting record low infection rates for LA County. It's like, did that really happen? Because I think they had quite a high infection rate.
No, that's why the trigger document says is that it's an idealized, it's a kinder, gentler pandemic where they managed to get record lows within sort of 5 or 6 months, rather than how
Dragging
America
out for
actually,
years.
yeah. So they kind of had probably an Australian pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I do like how the news also goes on to say we've reorganised our closets and rearranged the pantry and learned how to make sourdough. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Sort of learned how to make sourdough.
That was the trend at the time.
It's funny too because when COVID first started, like I'm talking like February, March 2020, my brother was actually living in California.
Oh.
And so he got shipped back to Australia real fast because they were worried that he'd be stuck over there because he was there for work. And so he was supposed to be there for 6 months. He was there for like 2. And
also, his work recalled him. Thank God for that.
Yeah, right. His work were real good, thank goodness. But Mum and I were going over there to see him for for our mum's birthday, and we were paying to take her to Disneyland because we haven't been to America before. It was going to be like this big birthday present for her, and then everything locked down.
Yeah.
And so my brother was home before our flight was even supposed to leave, and we were just like, yep, cool. Have to cancel that flight because we no longer have anywhere to stay.
Yes, cancelled a lot of plans out of that one.
Now the closest I've been to going to LA is in GTA.
While the news anchor is talking about how great it is that life is returning back to normal, we see a woman exit her house dressed for cycling. She's got like spandex, the funky gloves, funky sunglasses, the bike helmet, and then she puts on a mask just to like really drive home that this is like COVID times, and starts riding through the hills of LA, through the streets of LA, and across the top of the Hollywood Reservoir Dam.
And as she rides past a truck, which is the power department people, there's a guy there who's on the phone and he's talking to somebody, and he says, like, that's why they call them microquakes. They're small. Because apparently they've been having earthquakes during this time as well.
Yeah, COVID wasn't enough. They also had to have a natural disaster thrown in as well.
Yeah.
So we don't even have to wait for the disaster episode in this season. It just gets right into it. Because as the lady's riding along, one of the microquakes actually hits, and she stops because they're in the middle of the road. Ahead of her is like a chunk of like concrete. And then she hears this noise behind her, and as she turns around, there's water rushing down the road. Oh yeah, and I love this. She tells Siri to call 911. I don't know when Siri started to be able to do that, but that is such a neat thing that it can do.
I think most voice activated assistants on phones can do that now. They can contact emergency services for you, which is excellent because it means that if you are if you can't reach your phone, if you're unable to type in the number, you can at least yell at your phone and it will call someone for you.
Yeah, I've done it while driving a couple times. Like, I used to work right near this massive intersection that was like 5 or 6 roads all like crossing each other.
Oh, I hate those. They're just recipes for disaster.
Oh, it was awful, and the traffic lights went out so regularly. And so, like, I'd go out to get lunch at the supermarket that was on the corner of it, and if the traffic lights were out, I'd just tell Siri to call 000 and be like, yep, cool, I'm at this intersection, the traffic lights are out, and they'd be like, cool, we'll send the police down. I'm like, thank you.
Well, I mean, now if you've got an Apple Watch and you fall over, it'll call the emergency services for you.
So the woman we find out her name is Janelle, so I'm just going to call her Janelle from now to make it easier, calls 911, and I'm now starting our official worst 911 calls of the season, because she tells Linda that the damn dam is falling down.
I actually really like this one. Like, as much as it's like super corny, I'd probably say the same thing.
Damn.
Like, if you're annoyed and like there's water over it, like, the damn dam. And at least she starts the call with the dam at the Hollywood Reservoir.
She does give Linda the location, yes. Look, I'm not saying it'll make it in the top 3, but it hits the short list.
Yeah. But yes, so the damn dam is coming down.
Yeah, and she's like pedaling as hard as she can to get away from the water that's rapidly approaching from behind. And as she's still trying to tell Linda what's going on, the water overtakes her and she's like, I'm not going to make it.
Then we go to the title card. When we come back from the title card, we're jumping back 2 hours before this happened. We get the caption that says 2 hours before the dam break. And we are eavesdropping on Maddie and Chim's morning Zoom call. Or FaceTime, I actually think it is.
Yeah, this took me back. This is when Zoom first became, like,
Big.
more popular. Yeah. It was around before, but, yeah, everyone started using it at this point. So I was surprised that Maddie and Chim were separated and talking to each other on Zoom. And then when I realised where Chim is, it made a lot more sense.
Yeah, so obviously the 118 created it, like, they have their bubble. Takes me back when you go, like, your essential workers creating your bubbles of people that you work with. So they were all at Bucks because they were their little bubble that was going to work, and so they were coming back. Also keeping in mind that Maddie is pregnant, so she would therefore be high risk. So Chim definitely wouldn't want to be going anywhere near her, at least to start with.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Bucks is the biggest, or, you know, why.
It's not, though.
Why
Bucks has got he's got a studio, like, it's a loft.
Yeah.
Like, he has one bed. Yes, he has 2 bathrooms, but he's got one bed, so, like, who's sleeping on the couch? Who's sleeping in the bed?
That's why I had a note down, like, can we talk about sleeping arrangements? I honestly don't think it's because of size. I think it's because literally Buck had nobody else in the apartment.
Yeah.
So everybody else, so Maddie moved in to Chimney's apartment so that she didn't have to keep living on the streets in, you know, her delicate condition.
Or in Chimney's drawer. She's been upgraded
Hen
to the
had
bedroom.
Karen and the kids. Eddie had Christopher, assuming that they let him come back from summer camp. So everybody had somebody at home that could be put at risk of these guys.
But where was Chris? Like, was Chris staying at Eddie's abuela's?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know where he went.
Hear about
they
that.
don't tell us. But again, he would be like I'm assuming that having CP, he would be like immunocompromised. So you definitely
he'd be high risk, surely.
Yeah. So Eddie would not want to be coming home to him every night, being out and about mid-pandemic. I don't know. They never actually tell us. We just know that as we get later on the dialogue that at some point the pandemic is quote-unquote over, so Eddie goes home to Christopher. But we never actually find out where Christopher was that entire time. But yes, sleeping arrangements in Buck's loft would... I would love to know what they thought that was going to do. Like, I'm assuming, like, in my brain, it's Buck and Eddie upstairs and Chim and Hen, like, on blow-up mattresses in the living room.
I was sort of thinking they just give Hen the bed and the boys would just all sleep downstairs on the floor. You know?
That's another combination I hadn't thought of.
Yeah. I
mean, they all share the bunk room at work together anyway, so...
Yeah, but that's, like, separate beds.
So, yeah, has Bobby been going home to Athena the whole time?
I guess so, because there's no children there.
I'm going to say that they're both first responders, so they're both sort of going out.
Yeah, but Athena hasn't been.
Yeah,
Athena hasn't been at home the whole time.
Maybe Bobby's been sleeping at Buck's as well.
No, I don't think Bobby would have wanted to leave Athena.
Yeah. Well, maybe they've got a similar thing going on.
So many questions that they just didn't...
Well, we just didn't need to know that, obviously. It's just when you start thinking about it harder, you're like...
It's not... 100% it's not relevant to the story.
No, not relevant.
Just, like, I'm putting my clown makeup on here. Like, oh, does that mean Buck and Eddie were sharing a bed for months?
I wonder if this is like a fanfic writer affliction. Like we need to know the details. Like we think about all the possibilities.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Chim and Maddie are having a conversation on Zoom.
They're having a fight about coffee.
Well, that's because Albert appears in the back of Maddie's picture and hands her a peppermint tea, but Maddie's like, that's not peppermint tea, that you are drinking coffee. I can smell it. Give it to me.
It's because apparently Albert has moved in with Maddie into Chimney's apartment.
Well, Albert was already living in Chimney's apartment, so...
But was he? Like, was he still there?
In the lounge room. I guess so.
Yeah,
but there was, like,
never left.
But there was, like, several episodes where they
forgot about him briefly, but
they forgot about Albert. Okay, so...
He was out having booty calls every night, it's fine.
Apparently. So yes, apparently Chimney has gone like overprotective. Maddie is just an incubator. She can't do anything that's going to affect the fetus. Even though Maddie's own doctor, the one who has actually studied the growth and development of children, has said that Maddie having 1 cup of coffee is fine.
Look, I've tried to give up coffee before and it was an extremely painful experience. I don't ever want to do that again. I did drink coffee during pregnancy and my children are fine, apparently. Sometimes they go to sleep. They don't often sleep, but, you know.
I drank coffee, I drank wine, I had sushi, I had soft cheese.
And your children are alive?
Apparently.
Good.
We did hear them thudding upstairs, so yes. Can vouch that the children are alive.
So while Maddie and Chimney are fighting through the Zoom screen about coffee, we get an appearance from Buck as well. Who sticks his face? Who gets told by Chimney to go stick his face in his own FaceTime, and to keep out of his and Maddie's argument, because Buck is 100% on Maddie's side and thinks that Chimney is overreacting. Buck's response is that he should pull the plug on Chim's FaceTime because he should be bickering with Maddie in his own kitchen. Because Eddie and Hen went back to their kids months ago. Chim is still the only one going all World War Z. And kudos to Buck for the pop culture reference.
I know, right? Look at him. Yeah. He must have watched a movie while Chim's at his house.
Either that or someone made the reference around him and he's just kind of like locked it in as like, oh, this is where we talk about it's being like World War Z. He has no idea what World War Z is, but he knows that it's the correct reference to use.
I guarantee Eddie used it and he was just like, oh, Eddie makes pop culture references. Eddie has a silver star.
So Eddie and Hen went back to their kids months ago. So, and this is only 5 months after the end of season 3.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously the pandemic really wasn't that bad there.
What, like 2 or 3 months?
Yeah.
Well, they decided it wasn't worth being in a bubble anymore. Going home.
I don't know.
To sleep in my own bed instead of on Buck's couch.
So Chimney fires back at Buck and says, we're bantering playfully. Speaking of which, shouldn't you be upstairs talking to your new COVID crush? It's kind of an awkward segue, but it does introduce the information that apparently Buck has been spending hours of time talking to a woman through a webcam, which Albert is absolutely, this is news to him, and he is astonished that Buck could meet a woman during the pandemic. He wants to know his secret.
And he sort of brushes it off. It's like, I don't have a secret. So their shift's about to start, so they need to get going. And so he disappears, and Maddie's like, he's not wrong. Like, I moved in here and we were supposed to live together. And Chim's like, yeah, I know, but, you know, we need to be safe. But Maddie's not having it. She's like, we just take precautions like everyone else does. So obviously Chim's extremely... What's the word?
He's hypervigilant. He's paranoid. Like
paranoid. That's
hypochondriac. Even though it's not for himself. It's just he's completely over the top.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that Maddie kind of takes this opportunity to start having a little sort of sexy talk. Because she sort of very flirtatiously says to Chim, like, would it be so bad if we had to strip down at the end of the day? And first, there's a moment where Chim, like, starts to, you can see on his face, he's like, oh, yeah, let's, and then he remembers that Albert's in the room, and his face just falls. And he goes, like, is my brother still there? And off camera, we could just hear Albert go, I'm not listening. Which means he's totally listening.
He's absolutely listening.
At this point, Maddie feels the baby kick and stands up to give Chim and the audience a belly shot. So if you didn't get that we've had a time jump, the size of Maddie's belly definitely lets you know that there's been a time jump, because the last time we saw her, she was like peeing on a stick, and now she's huge.
Yeah. And I'm glad that we identified already that she's really pregnant in this, because she looks at me just gorgeous.
She's not yet. She's not yet. This is a prosthetic.
What? Wait, I thought you said she was really pregnant.
No, not yet.
Not yet?
No, not because we went through this in the last episode. Her kid was born in like August or September, of 2021.
Oh.
So she would be barely pregnant in this. She would not have that belly.
Well, she wouldn't be pregnant at all, because this is September/October 2020.
Yes.
Ah, there you go. Also, I forgot that she had a daughter named Autumn.
It's one of those things, we talked about it, where I was wondering, did they write this storyline for Maddie knowing that she was, like, knowing that Jennifer Love Hewitt was pregnant, they would need to work out an excuse for her change in her body shape and a possible absence from the show? Or was it simply because she was a woman in a relationship and pregnancy is just the next logical storyline for her? And I think it was the latter, but then Jennifer got pregnant and it just sort of all tied in nicely that they could...
I thought you meant that she was now pregnant, like, by the time they actually recorded it.
She might be like 4 weeks pregnant in real life at this point when they're recording. Or she might be about to get pregnant, but she's not like 6 months pregnant.
Oh,
yeah, she's about to get pregnant. If they were filming in September, October, then yeah, she's not pregnant yet, because the baby was born in September, like a year later.
Following year.
Yeah. So maybe having the baby bump on, she was just like, oh, let's have another one.
I don't know. It's just it's a strange. It's like oh, what the
Life
fuck
imitates
is that phrase?
art.
Yay! There we go. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. It's life imitating art.
Yeah. Okay.
And apparently the baby is kicking because the baby likes coffee.
Yeah, Chim says the baby's the size of a mango and the mango doesn't get a say. But Maddie says the mango misses daddy.
No.
It's a very cute scene. I wanted to punch Chimney's face in for most of it. But like their banter backwards and forwards, and the way that Albert just kept sort of inserting himself into their dynamic.
Oh, I love the fact that, so, like, at the end, as they're signing off, Chim's like, I love you both. And then Albert's like, love you too, bro. Oh, he probably meant you and the baby.
Yeah.
And he's reassuring. He's obviously looking after Maddie pretty well. Because he's reassuring her that Howard will be home soon. It's like, I thought you called him Chim like everyone else, Albert.
He says that Howard Chimney is just scared, and Maddie responds, isn't everyone? And then we get a nice cut to the Athena residence, where Athena has taken... Yeah, she's scared. She's taken her badge out of her dresser drawer and she's staring at it. And as she's staring at it, she's remembering the last time she wore that badge, which was when she was brutally attacked by Jeffrey, the realtor rapist, at the end of last season.
And there's a knock on the door and Bobby's there and he says, okay, they're on.
And we get another Zoom call.
Harry and Michael are on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. I swear to God, Harry's grown up like a whole lot in the last 5 months. He looks a lot bigger to me.
Well, it would have been the last time we saw him would have been January of that year. So if it's now October, it's 10 months.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, kids grow.
Yeah.
But our now grown-up Harry is sitting there in a suit and tie.
Yeah, maybe that's part of it. He looks like he's ready for a job interview.
And he tells Athena that he can't talk for long because he's got Zoom homeroom in like 10 minutes. Athena assumes that the jack in the tie means that he's run out of his normal clothes because Michael's forgotten to do laundry, and that was like the best that Harry could do. And Michael's just like, no, I've done the laundry, thank you very much. Little man just wanted to get dressed up today, like very, very sort of smugly. And I love that Bobby immediately recognizes why.
Yeah, what's her name? I love the Michael Bobby bestieism in this scene.
Yeah.
Even if Athena doesn't.
Oh no, Athena's pissed that her ex-husband and her husband are besties.
Yeah.
Harry is also pretty pissed at this point because Bobby asks what's her name and Michael answers and like, it's Tiana. Harry's like, oh my God, you guys suck. And that's not me being like paraphrasing. He literally tells them that they suck.
Yeah.
It's that tween sass coming through.
But I also love that he's got like the shirt and tie, but he's doing kind of the newsreader thing where he looks really professional from the waist up, but from the waist down he's just in shorts, which absolutely scandalizes Athena. And she's like, I take it back. I take everything back about thinking that was a good idea for you to go live with your dad. Go and put some pants on.
So Harry's staying with Michael. David is also apparently staying with Michael because...
So where is May staying?
I think with Bobby and Athena.
Because we don't actually find that out, but yes. David the doctor has now moved in with Michael, so they move fast.
Yeah. Where's the dog? Didn't he have a dog?
Oh my God, where's the dog?
The dog's gone?
God. Justice for Oscar.
If it helps, Autumn just jumped up on my lap and was just like, yes, hello, I am dog. I am here.
Hello, Autumn.
You are here, darling. You're such a good dog.
You're not the dog we were worried about, but thank you.
But yes, where's Oscar?
I hope Oscar's there too somewhere.
I don't think we ever see a dog at Michael's apartment.
No. What the hell?
I think they just accidentally forgot about it.
100% they forgot about the dog.
Whoops.
Justice for Oscar.
They hoped that we forgot about it.
We don't forget about this shit.
Well, I didn't until right then. Thanks, Ellen.
You're welcome. So Athena asked him how everything's in the ER and if they're still overwhelmed, which I don't know if the pandemic wasn't that bad there, then maybe the hospitals could have coped with things rather than get overwhelmed like they did. But David's going to go and do a regular brain surgery today and then go back to the ER to help out, apparently.
And we find out through this conversation that it is going to be Athena's first day back at work, which sort of explains the staring at the badge a few minutes earlier. Although when Michael expresses that it seems like that's a little bit sudden for her to go back to work, suddenly Athena's completely on board with going back to work. She's like, it's not like I haven't been cooped up in here for 6 months.
Totally fine, you guys.
To much Michael said, I heard it was going good, which immediately raises like red flags for Athena. Like, you heard? Because her husband's been gossiping about her behind her back again.
Yeah, not only that, but Michael also knows that they've got a little herb garden.
and he knows that she's on desk duty.
Yes.
And Athena's like, sounds like you already knew about that.
And then literally hangs up on him.
Yeah.
And Bobby's all like, we still had 10 minutes left of that call. I had more things I wanted to talk to Michael about.
Yeah, why are you hanging up on my bestie?
Athena's all, maybe I should have left you on. Keep talking about me behind my back. Like, I didn't tell him about anything he just knew.
Yeah, Bobby's like, we're worried about you. I'm like, oh, you guys. But Athena assures him that she's ready to go back.
Yeah, this is where they mention May, because before Michael gets hung up on, Michael asks where May is, and Bobby says she couldn't wait to get out of here this morning. So yeah, she's still staying with Bobby and Athena.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
We also get an interesting, very quick reference, a very oblique, very quick reference that not only was 2020 the year of the pandemic, but 2020 was also the year of the massive Black Lives Matter protests, which simply just get referenced to the protests.
Yeah, God forbid a TV show that, features cops mention anything about. Anyway.
Like, interestingly, as another tangent, because God knows we haven't had enough in this episode already, apparently post Black Lives Matter, Tim Minear hired a new consultant who is pretty much a real life Athena. She was a black LAPD officer.
Oh, interesting.
So the idea that she would be there that they could run everything past to make sure that they were. Let me pull up the actual article so I get it correct. So they hired a woman named Cheryl Dorsey, who was a former LAPD field sergeant who wrote a book called Black and Blue about police reform and racism amongst the police department. So Tim hired Cheryl as a consultant because he was interested in telling the stories of a black woman on the streets as a field sergeant.
Okay, good. So even though
Very
they
cool.
just sort of vague over it, they have been doing things behind the scenes at least.
Yeah, there's a
that's good.
quote down here that says that the trick to show the issues of racial injustice is to do it in a sensitive, nuanced way, which he thinks that they did last season with Rage. They don't want to use those kind of issues as bait for the audiences. They want to tell an honest story from Athena's point of view, and that's why they brought in Cheryl. So that's from an article in The Wrap from January 2021.
Right. Good work, Tim.
Yeah, don't want to bait the audience with...
Yeah, heaven forbid you bait the audience.
Well, that side of the audience. The queers are fine to bait.
They also...
Apparently.
Bobby also mentions the fires. I'm not quite sure. I'm assuming there was like a massive California wildfire in the
To be fair, there's
2020s.
always massive
Yeah.
California wildfires, so... I actually thought it was weird when I first started watching this show. I was like, why aren't they ever fighting wildfires in California? But they have given a reason. I just don't remember what that reason is right now.
Yeah, Google can't point me to one specific, just that there was a wildfire season. So should we get on to an actual emergency, now that we've reconnected with all our characters, except for one?
Yeah, let's do that. So some people have gone back to work. I don't know if the pandemic is officially over or whatever, but I feel at this stage everyone was still working at home in the real world, but and would be for some time to come after this. But there are some people in this office building in the city. Keith and Ashley are walking into the elevator, I feel like.
They come off the elevator and walk
Okay.
into a boardroom, and they're both wearing masks, and they both make a point of stopping by the hand sanitizer station to grab some hand sanitizer.
Yeah, it can't be easy to do a scene, like to act with a mask on, because like a lot of your acting ability is in your facial expressions, and when half of your face is covered up, you can't really see that.
It also means that everyone is slightly muffled for the entire episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're talking through a mask.
Yeah.
But I really do appreciate that 911 went to the effort of going, you know what, it is realistic that that people would be wearing masks pretty much at all times, so we're going to go with that.
Yeah, they committed.
And I do like...
I'm definitely glad for subtitles, though.
Yes. I do like that they also, like, splashed out and had branded masks. So, like, the LAPD have, like, LAPD logos on the side of their masks.
Yeah, very fancy.
LAFD have LAFD branded masks.
The rest of us had to just deal with our...
the surgical ones?
Shitty surgical white ones.
I got a fabric one that had, like, the bottom of my dog's face on it, so it looked like I had, like... That was cute.
That's cute.
We did, like, a big fundraiser and had them ordered.
So I feel like Ashley's been working from home, but Keith hasn't.
Oh, yeah, she talks about a Zoom call, a Zoom meeting.
Yes, so apparently, I'm not entirely sure what industry these guys are in, but...
They do portfolio management.
Something in finance? Wealth management? I don't know.
Yeah, they'd be doing, like, divestment stuff and investment stuff.
So the argument between these two is that Keith took a meeting with Ashley's client, or the client with whom Ashley is the primary on the account.
Yeah,
And
but it's also the biggest client of the business.
And she's pissed because with these meetings comes commissions. And so being sidelined from this meeting means that she's missed out on all of the possible commissions that came from this meeting.
Yeah, and his explanation is something like the client doesn't like Zoom meetings and he wanted to come in person to have a meeting.
So that's why Keith and Jake took it. Which just pisses
Jake being
Ashley off.
the intern who still doesn't shave. Like, apparently Jake's quite young.
Yeah.
I love Ashley. Keith starts sort of trying to rationalize what happened, and she just says, you know what, Keith, I know you have a master's in mansplaining, but please, I don't want to lecture. What she wants...
And he's like, oh, what do you want? And she's like, I want my commissions. Like, how many times do I have to say it?
And Keith's like, oh, I don't think Jake's going to like that. And Ashley says, well, Keith can go cry into his sippy cup. I want 100% of the commissions, and next time, don't throw me under the bus. And Keith says, I did not throw you under the bus.
And then he
and
gets
as we say that.
And then he actually gets thrown under a bus. Because a bus, this caught me totally by surprise. Like, I'm just watching this like argument happening, and then all of a sudden this freaking bus crashes through the window in the side of the building. And I'm like,
so we have to emphasize that Keith and Ashley had to take an elevator to get to this boardroom, so they are several stories up. There is no way that a bus should be... It's not like they're on the ground floor, where a bus could, just come off the street through their front window. There's no way that a bus should be coming through their windows. I don't think anybody anticipated that when Keith said he was throwing Ashley under the bus, that he was literally going to be throwing a bus at her.
Anyway, we're going crashing straight into a commercial. And after that, it's 1 hour before the dam break. So
we've moved forward slightly, because we were 2 hours before. We're now 1 hour before.
Well, we came back to the present because the bus was in the present after the dam broke. So we've just gone back another hour. So we keep going back and then coming up to the dam break and then going back again and then coming back up to the dam.
So we are going to check in with the 118. We're at the station house, and once again, they're emphasizing the COVID protocols, because we see a firefighter walk into the engine bay and get stopped at the entrance to have their temperature taken, which again was 100% what was happening, definitely on set, and in a lot of workplaces. And Bobby has not learned his lesson about talking about Athena behind her back, because he's still talking about her behind her back, but he's talking with Hen now.
Who is one of Athena's best friends, so...
He's worried about her, okay?
But I understand that he's worried about her, and he's like an old woman, and he needs to, talk it out, but your wife has explicitly told you that she doesn't like you talking about her behind her back. So if you're going to do it, at least do it to people who aren't going to report back to Athena that you've been talking about her.
He just needs reassurance. He's so worried. He's like, Hen, I need you to tell me that she's going to be okay. So basically, Hen's tells him that. He's like, she needs to work it. She needs to figure it out for herself. Just let her do the thing. And Bobby's like, okay, I guess I can do that. I'm paraphrasing quite a lot there, but that's basically what this scene is about.
That's basically,
pretty much,
yeah, pretty much the scene.
Meanwhile, Athena is getting back out there. She's got a mask on, as you said, like with an LAPD logo on it, very swish. She walks into the headquarters and everyone is wearing a mask. And
how much money do you think that this LAPD, like this 911 LAPD, spent on masks for everyone?
It's a very good question.
I don't know, but they look quite good quality from what we can tell.
But you would have had to have like multiple masks because you need to wash those ones regularly.
Yeah. Would have been a fortune.
Anyway, that's just where my brain has gone. Like, fuck, that would be expensive to have to kit out every officer with multiple.
Maybe they forced everyone to buy them.
I don't know. Fundraising for the LAPD.
I was going to say
mandatory.
Yeah.
Mandatory fundraising. There's probably something about it in the big, thick folder of guidelines that Elaine gives to Athena to read while she's at her desk.
Well, interestingly, Elaine is not wearing a mask when Athena comes into her office.
Yeah, she just takes off the mask.
Well, they're probably all in the same bubble, so it's okay. Maybe Captain Maynard just lives in the office, so she doesn't have to wear a mask because she doesn't go anywhere. Yeah, it's hit and miss sometimes about when they're wearing masks and when they're not wearing masks, but I do appreciate that for the most part they try and have the characters wear masks.
Yeah.
So we get yet another person who is surprised that Athena is back at work, and that she's not taking more time to heal.
And Athena says that she wants to ease her way back in.
Which I think is probably the first time that she's admitted this, because everyone else we've found out that she's on desk duty, which we've learned from the previous experience that Athena despises desk duty.
Yeah.
It's interesting. At this point, she's like, you know what, I'm quite happy with desk duty, and I will admit it to you that I'm happy with desk duty for now. But when Elaine says to her, like, I'm surprised that I got your call about, wanting to come back even if you are easing in, she says, I was beat up, it wasn't the end of the world. And Elaine responds like, well, I mean, no, but after everything that's happened, it kind of feels like maybe it is the end of the world. Athena brushes this off and says, oh, you sound like my daughter, which introduces us to what has been going on with May.
Turns out she's taking a gap year. And what is she doing to fill the gap?
Yeah, Athena's not very happy about what she's doing to fill that gap, which is interesting.
I don't think Athena would be happy with anything that she did to fill that gap because she's not happy that she's taking a gap.
Yeah, that's right.
She just wants at college.
Wants May to college. But May is, when we cut to find out what May is doing, she is sitting at a station practicing taking 911 calls.
It's so cute.
Is a dispatcher now, or training to be a dispatcher.
She's just sitting there like, 911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
It's different vocal inflections, different voices. So pitch it higher, pitch it lower. And then Maddie catches her. And May tells her that she's trying to get that calm and authoritative voice down.
Yeah. Apparently she's been reading ahead in the training manuals. And Maddie's like, stop reading ahead, you're going to cover it next week. And so May is a A+ student apparently. Yeah, and Maddie says, like, are you sure you wouldn't rather be at college? And May's like, I would be staring at a screen if I was doing college right now, which is the same thing as what we're going to do now. So, yeah.
It's also because if May went off to college, they suddenly couldn't include her in a lot of episodes, but having her be a 911 dispatcher, she becomes like a series regular. More storyline opportunities. Yay!
Yay.
Especially since it's possible Maddie might be going on maternity leave at some point soon.
Yeah, we're going to need someone else in the dispatch so that we have an excuse to keep going back, because apparently Josh isn't interesting enough.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, Josh can carry the whole place on his shoulders. He'd be
Josh
right.
100% could carry a storyline or two.
Yeah.
But no.
Oh, well, May's there too now.
But yeah, so today is duet day. So Maddie's lead singer and May's going to play the keyboards. Which May does not understand at all.
Maddie's so pleased with herself with this analogy. And May just stares at her blankly. But what she means is Maddie's going to talk and May is going to type as they take calls.
Okay, so now we're going back to the almost present, basically where we started at the beginning of the episode, because this is the guy who's telling someone on the phone that they're microquakes. They're small. He's at the Hollywood Reservoir. They got some weird readings, so he's running a check. And then he says this line, and we all go, oh my God, because he says, hey, it's September. How much worse could it get? Oh, you just wait.
Dude. Don't poke the bear.
You got no idea. Just the beginning. Anyway, he's got to get off the phone to his honey because his boss is on the other line. So
while he switches to talk to his boss, we are going to cut to a bus. An orange bus, coincidentally.
The bus.
Yes. Do you think it's the bus? I mean, how many orange buses do you think there are going to be in this episode?
Sure, it's just some other random bus. It's fine.
It's just a random orange bus. But the focus is not, at this point, the bus. It's we get a very close-up, full-screen shot of a young man's backpack, which has a badge on it that says "Proud Aspie." So this is CJ. CJ gets on the bus, and he must be a regular because the bus driver knows him and greets him by name.
So apparently he's back today because hybrid scheduling has been implemented in special education programs across Southern California. CJ also says he has class today and he's working on his eye contact.
It says that he's a senior. Are we going senior in high school or senior in college?
Senior in high school, surely.
He looks a little old to be a senior in high school, but then again, I can't tell ages, and Hollywood is notorious for casting 30-year-olds for teenagers, so who knows?
I assumed it was high school, but as well.
Look, it possibly is.
Yeah. She asked him if he was a senior this year, and he says, yes, I am, Vanessa, just like you. It's like, oh, damn. Thanks, kid.
Vanessa, the bus driver, is not the only one who recognises CJ. There's a woman in a pink apron, which is going to become important later, sitting in one of the seats further down the bus, who greets him with a corona hug, which is pretty much just she stretches her arms out and it's almost like an air high five.
Yeah.
And when she says, CJ, you're back, he repeats the same line that he told Vanessa about hybrid scheduling, and he has class today. And he makes a point of noting that she is wearing her pink apron, and she says yes, because it's Pink Apron Day.
I don't know why it's Pink Apron Day, but apparently it's Pink Apron Day.
Well, I don't know, and it's going to become important later on.
She says, I've been trying to keep it up while you were gone, so did she accidentally wear the pink thing on multiple days and he noticed and called her out on it? And she's like, oh, it must be Pink Day.
And just before the bus pulls away, a man rushes onto the bus, comes through to the back and sits in the disabled seating, which is the seats that face inwards rather than forwards. And you can see that CJ is not happy about that.
Yeah.
But before we find out CJ's reaction, we're going to go back to the water and power worker who's switched lines to talk to his boss, a Mr. Cruz.
Apparently this guy is the same person who was in the tsunami episode. The water and power.
Cool dude. He survives the tsunami.
Yeah. He was-
This guy should not be working around water.
well, it's not his fault that these things have happened. He just has to clean it up. He has to deal with it.
Was he the one that Athena kidnapped to turn the power off so she could get to May?
I don't remember. I just saw it in the trivia. I didn't look it up, but it could have been the guy who was there to turn the power off when the guy was getting electrocuted, maybe? Was that episode too?
Yeah, it was that episode, but like they couldn't get the power turned off. So Jamal kept telling Athena like the power's still on. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
she's like, yeah, but they couldn't
the
get
scene.
anyone to her, so she got a black and white to kidnap a water and power worker to come and turn the power
it's probably the same guy.
It's probably that same guy. Yeah. So he is being sent up to the reservoir because they've been getting some weird readings, I guess. And he tells Mr. Cruz that he would have been up there yesterday, but they had a systems crash somewhere. But he will go up now and take a look. So while he's doing that, we're going to cut back to the bus.
Yeah, CJ's getting quite distressed with the fact that the dude is sitting in the, mobility challenged section, and eventually he's kind of watching him and then trying to hold it together, and eventually he just snaps and goes, "Forward seating is reserved for mobility challenged passengers and members of the elderly community." And the guy's like, "Look, if someone gets on, I'll move." And then Tracy starts going off at him. So they start having an argument about it, basically.
Yeah, but the gist of the argument is that Zeke, that's his name, sitting in that seat is distressing to CJ because he has Asperger's, and therefore to keep CJ happy, Zeke needs to move. And Zeke's like, "I'm not moving." Okay, so here's where we need to do a quick acknowledgement of the elephant in the room, of the fact that they're using Asperger's and the Aspie term in this episode, because it's, as of 2025, that term is no longer an official diagnosis, and for a lot of people in the autism community, it's quite an offensive term.
Yeah, it was actually retired in 2013 as well.
Yeah, it was retired as an official diagnosis because it's incredibly difficult to, especially with autism becoming a spectrum disorder, and the acknowledgement that it is a spectrum and there is a very wide range of what autism looks like in people, is very difficult to determine, is this person on the spectrum but they have very low support needs, or do they have Asperger's? And so it was officially decided that they were just going to roll it all in, and Asperger's is part of the autism spectrum disorder now. It doesn't help that Asperger's is named after a psychologist who became a Nazi collaborator. And we don't fuck with Nazis.
Oh,
so we're going to try and let that name die.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the reasons that it's still a little bit like controversial to still be using the term Aspie and Asperger's disorder is there's an ableism inherent in it, because by sort of saying that you have Asperger's, saying that you're an Aspie, rather than saying you are autistic, there's this sort of perception that autistic people are, very high needs, low cognitive ability, low communication skills, but people with Asperger's, they're just, a little bit socially awkward.
Right, yeah.
However, based on CJ's age, I'm going to say that he probably was diagnosed at the time that Asperger's was still an official diagnosis. So it's not surprising that he and probably his family are clinging and identifying with that disorder, rather than transitioning to saying that he is autistic or he's on the spectrum.
Yeah, it's still kind of yikes that 7 years after Asperger's has been retired as a diagnosis, that 911's like, oh, we'll just make a character. Yes, it's realistic in the real world, but using it in media is still a bit icky.
I think also the actor who's playing CJ also identifies as having Asperger's. So that's probably, like, if we're going to have, like, a disabled actor play a disabled character, we're going to stay true to their disability. So if they're identifying as their disability is Asperger's, we're going to have that character have Asperger's rather than trying to force a different diagnosis, a different disability, even though it's not different on them. But just so everyone's aware, we recognize that it's not kosher that they're using the term Asperger's, but we recognize that for some people this is still how they
still the
identify
way
and how
they identify. Yeah.
and how they talk about themselves. Yes.
Anyway, fuck Nazis.
Yeah. So while Tracy and Zeke are having their standoff, our poor water and power worker has reached the wall of the reservoir and is staring in dismay at these cracks that have started to form across the wall, with water trickling out just to make things even better. And then another microquake hits, and we see all of the characters reacting to the microquake.
And at the 118, Hen asks if that was a 4, and Eddie doesn't think it's any more than a 3. But Buck
has his phone out.
Buck's looking at his
Tim
phone.
tells him not to cheat. Yeah.
I'm guessing they must be like so bored that they've sort of put a betting pool on if they can correctly guess the magnitude of the quakes.
Yeah.
Which is why Buck having his phone out is considered cheating.
But yeah, Buck helpfully informs everyone that Caltech's been tracking microquakes the last few days, thousands of them. And Bobby's just like, yeah, that didn't feel micro to me.
Josh gets a little bit of a psychic moment and warns all the dispatchers that microquake was a little bit bigger, so he agrees with Bobby, and tells dispatch to prepare for the deluge.
Yep.
And then we go back to the dam.
Speaking of deluge.
Speaking of deluge, the poor water and power worker stares at the wall, which is the cracks are spider webbing out and getting bigger, and he just says, oh, come on, 2020, don't do me like that. When in fact 2020 is going to do him like that because the dam breaks and he is smacked in the face with concrete and water and goodbye, Department of Water and Power, man. We hardly knew you.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, I hope he made it out of there, but, it was
there's
a
no
dam
way
breaking,
he made it
so
out of
no,
there.
he probably didn't make it out of there.
I mean, he survived the tsunami. Maybe he'll be okay.
He just got hit in the face. Like, that amount
With
of
a
water,
breaking
he
dam
probably
wall.
got concrete to the face. So, he's unconscious underwater if the pressure from the water hitting him didn't break something important anyway. There's no way
let
he
us
survived
believe. Come on.
Well, we never hear
Anyway,
back from him in
water-
this episode.
No, we don't find out. The water heads downstream.
But then, I think this is the worst segue. So we see the water, like, rushing through the dam wall, down the Hollywood Hills, and we cut back to dispatch saying, you've got water flooding? If it's a main break, we'll notify Water and Power. Like, you can't notify Water and Power.
Ouch.
He's dead.
They know about it. Can guarantee it. Linda is now on the phone with Janelle about the dam breaking, and when she screams on the other end of the line, Janelle like yanks her earpiece out, looking at it like it's hurting her, and Josh sort of runs over and goes, "What was that?" I'm like, "Oh, Josh, you can't hear everyone's calls anymore." It's only
He lost his magical
only
headset.
sometimes.
They're so
you
hit
can
and
hear.
miss. I don't know. They're so hit and miss with this.
Anyway, Linda is not as frantic as I expected that she might have been. She just goes,
Yeah,
she
right?
She said the dam broke.
Linda, that's pretty important information.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the bus. This is very choppy scenes, but it's building the tension because, the water's coming. They're still having their argument about moving out of the, disabled and elderly seats.
CJ is getting quite distressed. He's started rocking backwards and forwards in his seat. And Tracy is saying to Zeke, look, I get that you got hit hard by everything during the pandemic, but it doesn't give you the right. But before she can say anything else, CJ is looking out the window and he sees a wall of water rushing toward them, and they're on an overpass at this point. So they're several feet up in the air, and this water is like level with the bus. And he just says, I think we're all going to get hit hard. Which attracts everyone's attention. And then all of a sudden, the water hits. And the next thing we know, the bus is through the office building.
Yeah. So I had to rewind and watch this a couple of times to see if I could work out how close this overpass actually was to the building. Because it didn't look very close.
It didn't.
In the building shots, like when they were showing the outside of the building. And
so the water has like picked up the bus and carried it.
And not just knocked it over the edge of the overpass, but like yeeted it into the building. Like
yeah.
No,
anyway,
but yes.
Not thinking hard about this because
for the drama,
the bus is like 10 stories up in the side of this building.
I think it's like 4. I tried to count the windows. But still, it's not, I don't think it would be possible for them to be going over an overpass and have floodwaters literally pick it up and surf it across to an office building and then slam it front of the bus into the window the way that it does. But it's dramatic, and I love the way that it happens with, Keith saying, I didn't throw you under the bus, and the bus being thrown into Keith.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let them have it because for the drama it was fucking amazing. We don't even get a 911 call. Like the bus goes through the building and the 118 are there.
Yeah, they just appear.
And I think they've got new turnouts this season. They're either that or they had literally nothing to do during the pandemic except wash their turnouts, and this is actually just what they look like when they're clean.
Possibly.
So then, yes, we go back to dispatch now.
Yeah, Josh is taking control. Apparently Sue's not on shift today.
Apparently.
It's just Josh. He's running everything. He is going to...
They have opposite bubbles. It's fine.
Yeah, maybe. The water is going to keep going. They'll have to keep a list of the flooded streets on the whiteboard so they know what's underwater. And then he goes over to May and tells her to get off the phones, and she's going to have to listen into other calls and find out which streets are flooded and then put them on the board.
Yes. She immediately knows what Josh is going to ask her to do too.
Yeah, she's switched on. She's paying attention.
She gets a gold star.
She's Athena's daughter. She's got this.
So while she's listening in to calls and making notes and marking off the streets, at some point somebody has wheeled in a giant television onto the dispatch floor and they're showing Channel 8 news. And this is like possibly my favourite segue of this episode, because Channel 8 are coming to us live from an incredible scene at the 101 in Hollywood where a metro bus was apparently struck by the debris flow and ended up in an office building. They don't have word yet about how many people have been injured, but it appears that the LAFD and LAPD are rushing to the scene. And then we immediately cut to the 118 just standing in an elevator listening to music as the elevator very slowly takes them up to the correct floor. There is no rushing at all. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, they can't rush because the elevator is being slow.
No, but I mean, of all the things, they could be running up the stairs. They could have had them, like diving out of the engine truck. But no, it's just they're having them say that they're rushing and then showing them just standing calmly. And
they're absolutely not rushing.
The elevator music and everything. It's great.
Peak comedy. It's so good.
Buck's still on the phone as well. And this is definitely the season where, like, that thing with Buck always looking up fun facts. Like, you sort of see it in season 3 with, like, him being obsessed with natural disasters. But this, you really see Buck just spouting random fun facts.
Oh, right.
And Yeah, he's just like, oh, Hollywood Reservoir is like 2.5 billion gallons. Where's all that water gonna go?
Hen says it's all going to go in one direction, out to sea.
Yeah, Hen says that her mum survived the dam break in the 60s in Baldwin Hills.
Then the elevator dings, and we get another great transition where you've gone from like the calm of them just standing there in the elevator listening to the music with the doors open, and suddenly it's just chaos. Because you've got this bus, and there's sparks going from where power lines have been cut, and it's just
chaos.
Yeah.
It's just chaos. It's just great. And apparently it's definitely their stop. But only Bobby, Chim, and Hen get off.
And right before the elevator doors close on Eddie and Buck, Eddie turns to Buck and says, hey, at least it's not a tsunami, right?
And the doors shut on Buck's like absolute glare at Eddie.
Like, what the fuck, man?
I mean, to be fair, Eddie is like king of inappropriate humor.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking back to when he tells Buck, when he's looking after Christopher, to, take him somewhere inland this time after the tsunami.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, it was like, 18 months ago or something, wasn't it? Like the tsunami at this point, so...
I'm also thinking, just poor Buck, everyone is always just making light of his emergencies. Like that doctor, after Buck got cleared, after the fire truck fell on him, saying to them, like, yeah, just don't get another fire truck fall on you. Like, dude.
Yeah.
So while Buck and Eddie keep going up in the elevator, Bobby, Chim, and Hen are taking stock of the scene in front of them.
Yeah, they found Ashley. She's under an overturned chair. Yep. Chim checks her out and she's got a pulse, so he wakes her up by putting the smelling salts, and she like jerks awake. She's like, what the hell? He says, understatement of the year, there's been an accident. And then she remembers that Keith was also in the room, so she tries to sit up, and Chim's like, no, stay still.
So while Chim is dealing with Ashley, Bobby is looking at the bus, and they realise that the way that the bus is sticking out of the building, anytime anybody on the bus, all of the passengers move, the bus shifts backwards and forwards. So they can't do anything for the people in the bus until they get the bus stabilised, which is what the Bobbsey twins are doing up on the roof.
Yeah, Eddie's setting up something on the roof to be an anchor so that Buck can abseil down the side of the building.
Yeah.
They're very competent and businesslike. No jokes when they're on the roof.
Nope.
Hen talks to the bus driver, who is like sitting underneath some kind of like, I don't know, big steel beam thing.
Yeah, there's this large metal frame that's gone through the front of the bus and sort of doesn't look like it's gone through her, but it looks like it's just kind of gone on top of her and it's pinning her to the seat. So she continues sort of along the side, finds CJ, who is, in his distress, he's just continually repeating the same sentences that he was saying to Zeke when Zeke wouldn't move. But he manages to snap out of it when Hen talks to him. And we discover the woman in the pink apron, Tracy, she won't wake up. She's on the floor unconscious, which is probably stressing CJ out even more. Meanwhile, Zeke, our Mr. I'm going to sit in this seat whether you like it or not, is mostly fine, except he's got a very large shard of glass sticking out of his thigh, and he's not coping very well with it. And it hurts too much. He has apparently no pain tolerance whatsoever, and despite Hen telling him, don't touch it, he apparently has not watched any Grey's Anatomy or any kind of medical procedural show to know that if you've got something sticking in you, you don't pull it out, because that's exactly what he does.
Yeah, he just yanks it out of there.
And then we get spurting blood and
blood
gore
everywhere.
We have a
So
femoral
gross.
bleed, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, if it's spurting, it's an artery.
And then Hen's trying to tell him just to remain calm, and he's like, ah.
It's just making it spurt even more. But help comes.
CJ's gonna help.
Yeah, help comes in a surprising, from a surprising direction from CJ, who immediately stands up, starts stripping off his belt, and then goes over to Zeke. And Zeke starts freaking out because this kid who is angry at him is suddenly approaching with a belt in his hands. Hen's wondering what the hell CJ's about to do. But all he says is, in the event of extreme bleeding, applying a tourniquet is essential. So that's what he does. He's using the belt as a tourniquet.
Yeah, and he repeats that he's a proud Aspie and wilderness ranger this time.
And he's working on his eye contact. Good job, CJ.
So on the roof, Eddie tells Bobby, I guess, the rest of the team and the audience that Buck is about to touch down on the bus and secure the bus with some webbing. So that's what Buck does.
Yeah, pretty much. He's putting, like, hooks on the side of the bus underneath it, which is attached to, like, straps that Eddie is strapping to some kind of pipe railing on the roof. But basically just so that the bus is not going to move up and down. It's going to be held in one place.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, I don't know how often they're going to need to do something like this, but it's a cool way to stop it from moving.
Yeah.
But they can't get onto the bus until Buck finishes, which suddenly becomes a high priority because Tracy wakes up and rolls over. And it's hard to tell from this shot, but whatever Hen and Bobby see freaks them the hell out. And he's immediately hurrying Buck up. So he hurries, he straps everything in, he gets everything hooked up. Eddie confirms that they're all secure, but at this point Buck has swung into the office building to sort of bend down and put a hook under the middle of the bus. So he's crouching down so he can see under the bus, and he realizes that there's somebody under there, and we've found Keith. So now they have a dilemma because they just secured the bus so that they could get all the people off the bus without the bus falling out the side of the building, but they cannot get under the bus to get Keith out while it's still secured because there's not enough room. Not even Chim can crawl under and get him.
Yeah, he's not trapped under the bus. He's just underneath it, right? He's not being crushed by it. So the way
I think there's too much debris in the way.
It was just...
But I mean,
anyway.
Later on the bus moves and he starts screaming, so there must be some pressure being put on him by the bus.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. It was just the way they yank him out later.
Yeah.
I was like, why didn't they just do that from the start? But anyway, we'll get there. So they can't reach him. They think that he's got possibly a fractured pelvis. This is Chim doing his thing again where he just knows what's wrong with people. And Keith actually wakes up and tries to tell Ashley, like, I kept you out of that meeting on purpose. He said he didn't want a woman running his money. And she's like, shut up, stay still.
Actually, Chim tells them maybe that you guys can have your sidebar after we get the 30,000-pound teeter-totter off you, which you see the little light bulb above Bobby's helmet go on. It's like, it's a seesaw. Chim's like,
also known as a teeter-totter.
Which actually did, like, we've got 3 different states here. Did anybody call it a teeter-totter?
No, that's 100% American
seesaw?
thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just a seesaw.
Right. So then Bobby calls back up to Eddie and he's like, Eddie, we need the bus to rock backwards a little bit. And he's like, I just finished tying the fucking bus up. And now you want me to undo it again?
Yeah.
He's just like, yes. And you just do it, Eddie, okay? Like, fine. So the idea is that they're going to get everybody off the bus and then they are going to let it rock backwards so that it will lift up and then they can get Keith out.
I love Hen just go, as plans go. It is one. So they're a bit dubious.
Okay, so they open the doors to the bus. Hen says, "All right, gentlemen, welcome to triage." He quickly tells the guys about what's going on with all the passengers. And they get a proper tourniquet onto Zeke and they get him out of there.
They get all the other passengers out of there, but then they're left with Tracy and CJ. Tracy is going to be a difficult one because by the time Hen comes to examine her, we get a close-up of Tracy's face and specifically her eyes, and we get the classic television brain injury, blown pupil.
Yeah, very blown. Very pupil.
Yeah.
Very pupil.
Very pupil.
And then they say that, this is so gross. They say it's a cerebral hematoma. If she's not in surgery in the next 20 minutes, the swelling's going to push her brains out of her eye socket. I was like, oh.
Like, did we need that, Hen? Really?
Like, do we need to know that?
Yeah,
and does Tracy need to know that? Does CJ need to hear that? Like, really?
No.
He's already stressed. He does not want to know about that too.
But apparently they've got to keep her at 30 degrees. So Buck hightails it out of there to work out how to get her out at 30 degrees. Because they can't put her on a backboard.
I don't know whether he is trying to work out how to get her out of there at 30 degrees, because they literally just, like, pick her up and carry her out. I think he might be getting the gurney ready for them.
The gurney ready at 30 degrees? Yeah.
But all we hear is we got to keep her at 30 degrees, and before Bobby can pass on the order, Buck's already hightailing out of the bus going, yep, 30 degrees, I got it. We don't actually find out what he's got.
This is where he's, like, cooling down the gurney, and and it's like, angles, not temperature. For fuck's sake, Buck.
Oh, I didn't even think that, but that's amazing. And then to make matters worse, Tracy starts coughing up spinal fluid. So yay for Tracy.
Ew.
She's in great shape.
Oh my god, apparently 30 degrees Fahrenheit is -1.
Oh.
Damn, that's a lot of ice packs.
Yeah. So Buck's icing down the gurney. Tracy's coughing up spinal fluid.
Yep.
And so Bobby's trying to get CJ out, and CJ is having a bit of a meltdown, which is fair because his friend is coughing up spinal fluid.
Yeah, and what's really triggering him is that she's coughed up red blood onto her pink apron, and suddenly her apron is not pink anymore, it's red. And that sent him spiraling. Like, the apron's not pink, but it's a pink apron day.
Mm.
CJ and Tracy are not the only ones who aren't doing so well, because we check back in with Ashley and Keith through Chim, and Ashley tells us, do you remember how you told him to stop talking? Well, he's stopped talking, and that's not natural.
Yeah, so Keith isn't doing good.
No.
Nope. No one's doing good. So Chim tells Bobby that whatever they're going to do, they need to do it now so they can get Keith out. But unfortunately, Bobby and CJ are still on the bus. So Bobby just radios to Eddie and says, be ready to tilt on my signal. And Eddie's like, cool, everybody off the bus? And he's just like, no, on my signal.
Yeah, just
and
do
he's like, oh, fine, ready when you are. I'm like, not my circus, not my monkeys, just whatever. He's not having a good time up on that roof. He's getting pissy.
He can't see what's happening. All he can hear is his garbled commands through the radio.
Yeah.
All right, so Eddie does the thing, the bus tilts, they clear the debris away from Keith, and then on 3, they just yank him out of there. They grab like an arm and a leg and just turf him out onto then they dump him on the backboard. So they're not very careful. But I mean, they're in a hurry. And
they're
he's
very
not doing
much
so
in a
well.
hurry.
So yeah,
Because they need to get him out of the bus so they can put the bus back down, so that Bobby and Keith can get off safely.
Yeah.
And I guess with everything that's happened to Keith, like, his spinal injuries are the least of their worries. I will note that we have Durham working with the 118. So he got a promotion.
Oh, it is someone we know. I was wondering.
Yes, this is his second time. Please note that he is working with the 118 here. Because this is going to come up later.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So apparently yanking Keith out from under the bus wakes him up. And he's still apologising to Ashley. He's seen the error of his ways from underneath the bus that he threw her under. He's like, I'm so sorry. Jake and I should never have done what we did. It was sexist. It was stupid. Now she's like, I'm still not giving you my commissions. And as they're wheeling him out of the office, he's negotiating for how they're going to split. He's like, could we do it like 50-50? Like 70-30? She's like, no, you were giving me 100% of those commissions. I don't care that you just got rescued from under a bus. That's my money.
Yep. Good for her.
So they get the bus back into place. Bobby and CJ survived their trip on the public transit teeter-totter.
The teeter-totter, yeah.
Yep. But then there is a noise, which everyone is very concerned about. And Eddie radios through to Buck asking for him to confirm that everyone is off the bus because apparently the bus runs on natural gas and it's venting said gas. And suddenly CJ and Bobby can smell gas. And Buck jumps onto the bus to get Bobby and CJ off and is greeted with a massive fireball.
Yeah, I don't know what actually lit here, but...
Well, there was... Like, when they exited the elevator, we could see sparks from, like, where the lights had been smashed, but the power was still running, the electricity was still running, stuff was sparking.
Which would be weird. You'd think they'd turn the power off, but sure.
You would also think that if there was natural gas and light and sparks, it would have gone up before now.
No, well, but there is a line earlier where Buck says that it's still... Like, that it's not venting gas.
Yeah.
And so it's only since they moved it and then moved it back that it's started.
Okay. Yeah, all right, I will buy that.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So yes, no, that is actually mentioned. But anyway, yeah, so Buck jumps on the bus, a big fireball blows him off the bus, and then he jumps back on the bus because now, like, he's seen that Bobby and CJ were still on the bus when the fireball happened. And Bobby is face down in the aisle.
The bus is not on fire or anything after it blew up the gas. It just burned the gas off.
Yeah.
And then everything's fine.
Yeah, apparently nothing else caught. So it ignited very quickly and then dissipated very quickly.
Yeah, the seats are made of very fireproof fabric.
Apparently. I'm guessing they would be if you're running on gas. But yes, Bobby's face down in the aisle. Which worries Buck for a second until Bobby hauls himself to his feet and he realises that Bobby just like threw himself down on top of CJ to use his turnout to protect CJ from the fire.
Yeah, and when Bobby asks if CJ's okay, CJ just says, I would like to get off the bus now.
Yeah, I am not going to school. I am done working on my fucking eye contact. I just want to go home.
Reckon. Yeah, Bobby's magical turnout coat saved the day once again. Although that was Bucks the other time, but yeah, same deal. Same stuff.
Oh, Bobby's done it before. I think in Bobby Begins Again in the restaurant, he's covered somebody's body with his own body and that his turnout has protected them. Which I think is actually possibly part of like their training, that the turnouts are
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that's what the turnouts are for, yeah.
So if you're, like, worst case scenario, just, like, hunker down and let your turnout take the brunt of it.
Yeah, it's like when they're dealing with wildfires, they'll, like, dig a trench and then put the turnouts on top of them to, like, when the fire goes over the top of them.
Oh. Right, so we're getting some overhead shots of the Hollywood Hills and showing the path the flood's taken. Don't know if this is from a real flood disaster in LA or somewhere, or if it's somewhere else that they've just co-opted some.
It definitely
shots
doesn't
for.
look like Tim's gone into the train set in his basement and like poured water down a like paper mache hill that he's created.
Yeah, just went to sandpit and made some things. No. No, these still look like actual shots of a real flood, but, you know, I don't know if it was in LA or somewhere else. You can hear that from the 911 calls, there was a tree and it fell on the house. You know, an ambulance is on the way, etc. And so we get to see what Athena is up to now. And she is sitting at a desk telling people, sort of coordinating things. Don't go to the school, it's in the path of the debris flow. Use the library on Sunset. Elaine comes in to check on her, and she tells Elaine that they're not thinking on their feet out there. It's more like their elbows.
Elaine came in there with intending to do more than just check on Athena, because she received an alarming call from the Emergency Operations Center where they're worried about a landslide east of the reservoir, which Athena tells the audience is entirely residential. So LAPD are going to need boots on the ground to get people to knock on doors to evacuate that area. And Elaine says yes, and we also need someone to supervise the scene. And she wants Athena to go do it. She needs Athena back out there.
Athena does
like,
not look pleased.
Shit.
She's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, like, did I not just say I wanted to ease in?
This is not easing. So while she's grappling with that, Janelle has called 911 again, and this time she's got Maddie. And she tells Maddie that she's trapped somewhere underground. The water from the dam break brought her into what she thinks is a pipe. She's pretty sure her rib and her ankle are broken. She doesn't have any idea where she is.
Poor Janelle, she's really going through it today.
I think she's been going through it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we find out that she's stuck in a spillway pipe, which she's pretty sure is just water because it doesn't smell that bad. But unfortunately, if she's underground, that's not good for her because, as Maddie tells us, that's the ground that's about to tumble down the side of a hill. So if they don't get her out, she's going to be buried alive. And then we get, I guess it's meant to be like they're attempting to, number one, highlight what it was like during the pandemic. Like, remember what it was like during the pandemic, and they're also David Wallacing Janelle, because we get to see what her pandemic lockdown was like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's interesting because they go 6 months before the dam break, but Maddie's 5 months pregnant. And we found out Maddie was pregnant during the graduation party where they were all together. And then we've gone 6 months before the dam break and
there's a
they
shelter
get the
in
shelter in
place.
place order.
So are you saying that the graduation party was illegal?
An illegal graduation party in the house of a LAPD sergeant.
Maybe it was like the last thing that happened. You know, they did the graduation party, and as Athena's cleaning up the next day, they get shelter in place.
But, like, we find out that Maddie's pregnant. She's already got signs.
It's very timey-wimey. Who knows?
Anyway, apparently Janelle and her husband Steve's house was the first to get COVID. Because they got it a whole month before anyone else.
Yeah, they just had to shelter in place on that day for some other reason.
It was just them, yeah. Yeah, so we meet Janelle's husband Steve, who is the actual bike rider. So he seems to go bike riding a lot. He says, the wind in your face and a stretch of open road is a cure for whatever ails you.
Yeah, no.
And then when they get the
not.
shelter in place order, he says it's probably just for a few days.
I do like this
And then-
progression, though.
Yeah.
So we get captions showing us the progression of time. So that happened 6 months before the dam break. Then we get the caption saying it's March. So they're sheltering in place. Janelle's ordering, like, I'm guessing Instacart, some kind of grocery delivery. The delivery guy comes to the door. She opens the door and she takes them out of his hand.
Yeah.
Then we get to May. She's still ordering groceries, but this time she's staying inside the house and she's yelling for the driver to leave it on the porch. Then we get to June, and this time the driver has to leave them all the way down the end of the path at the letterbox. So
actually, that's interesting too.
March,
So when we left season 3, we were in May, and so it was anyway.
No,
anyway,
I don't think we can look too hard at that. It doesn't line up at all.
It doesn't line up at all.
911 forgot that they've been breaching COVID protocols for like 3 months prior to this happening. Anyway, yeah, so May, the driver leaves it on the porch. June, they leave it by the mailbox.
But then we also get in June that Steve has still been going out for bike rides. And he comes back from his latest bike ride and he's not doing well. He's pushing the bike. He's not riding it up to the driveway. He looks exhausted. He's coughing. And then he just collapses on the front lawn.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the next thing we hear is it's July and Janelle is calling the hospital to check in on her husband. And we just see her start crying because then we get still in July. The next shot is Janelle walking back into her house dressed all in black. And Steve's bike is abandoned on the porch.
So apparently they didn't tell her that her husband died, that she had to call and find out herself.
Yeah.
Maybe it was other bad news that came before he actually passed away. Anyway.
Oh no, I'm
Either
assuming
way.
that she called to check in and they're like, oh shit, we're about to call you. We're really sorry he passed. I'm going to assume that the hospital was just so flat out that they didn't have time to be doing the call-ins. It's probably like on the to-do list to do at the end of the shift. Before you went home, you call through all the families.
And then in August, Janelle's on the phone with her mum saying that she doesn't want her travelling right now. She's doing okay. No, she hasn't left the house. She's like, where would I even go? And then she sees Steve's bike, which is still abandoned on the porch.
So why wouldn't she ride Steve's bike?
Probably too big for her.
Yeah, because it goes from her looking at Steve's bike to the zip parcel dude dropping off a giant box, which is a new bike for Janelle, which she then spends pretty much most of August putting back together. And then we get to September. And she's finally she's finally finished. She's done all her online shopping. She's got her Lycra. She's got her helmet. She's got her kit. She's taking the bike out for its inaugural spin.
And it happens to be one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
She says to Maddie on the phone, this is what I get for starting a new hobby. No, I could have done sourdough, or I, could have started crocheting. No, I had to take up bike riding. But apparently she promised her husband that she would start riding for him.
Yeah.
Aww.
And she's like, ride or die, and I guess now it's die. And it's like, oh. So Josh brings up some maps, and they're having a look at the real-time maps of the storm drain system. There's spillways, red for closed and green for open.
They've already worked out that Janelle is in a spillway. So she asks Janelle if she can see a junction box or a switch or anything that would open the spillway. Janelle confirms that yes, there is a box, and she thinks that she can get to it. Maddie's like, cool, get to the box, open it, flip the switch. But nobody counted on there being a padlock on the box. So Janelle can't open it.
Maddie's full of ideas, though. She's like, do you keep tools with you when you ride your bike? And Janelle's like, actually, this is the first time I've been out, but I just so happen to have some tools here that I decided to bring with me on this inaugural ride. And they're just little, like the tools that you take with you for fixing your bike on the road are very small. And Maddie's like, just use that to break it. And I'm like, there's no way you're going to break a padlock with a tiny little,
utility tool. Yeah.
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 But she
God
tries.
bless her, she tries.
Yeah.
But then the poor darling breaks down. And she just keeps saying that she misses him. And her family's in Wisconsin and she hasn't seen them in almost a year. And it's not, it's not the same just talking to them on the phone. And Maddie's like, I know, but you're going to see them again. Things will get better because I'm still here and so are you.
She tells Janelle that it's not her time. And Janelle latches onto the fact that she is still here. She's like, I'm still here. I'm still here. I really hate this year. Every time she says the word, she is smashing that tiny little utility tool into that industrial strength padlock. But the strength of her conviction is enough to break through the cable and the padlock, and she's able to open the box, flip the switch, and open the spillway. And
Yay.
suddenly one of the little red dots on the map that Maddie and Josh are looking at turns green. So they've found her.
To be fair, I think we all hate 2020 enough to break a padlock.
Yes.
So Maddie tells Janelle, we've found you. Help is on the way. And here's why I said remember that Durham was working for the 118 because suddenly he's working for the 121.
Oh.
Because when the 121 is dispatched to get Janelle and they're carrying her out to the gurney, Durham is carrying her.
Oh.
It's fine. It's Durham's twin brother.
There's a whole
maybe
family of
was
Durham
just-
boys working.
Yeah.
Maybe he was on
That's
loan
it.
to the 118 just for that one day.
Their mother probably works at dispatch and is worried sick every day as well.
Like 100% I know that they were just shooting all these scenes and they just grabbed random turnouts from costume and nobody remembered, wait, we've already used this one today.
Is it a different person?
Well,
a different actor?
We can't see. All you see is
Oh,
the back
Yeah,
of
they
their...
don't show us the back. Yeah, they don't show us the background.
We never
firefighters.
see their face. I don't even think we see like the back of their head. We only ever see in this episode for Durham, we only see the back of their turnout, where it quite brightly and clearly says Durham across the back. I just thought it was funny.
Honestly, the things you notice.
Well, apparently the storytelling and the emotional beats are not compelling enough for me to...
Apparently, yeah, you just started noticing other things.
Noticing Durham's twin brother.
That's right.
It's
Or,
fine. We'll make sure we add Durham to the fan fiction of the background firefighters that we started in season 6.
yes. Or you're just so switched onto the story that you're able to take in the story beats and notice all of the background technical stuff.
Yeah, no, I think I'm just obsessed with the background firefighters.
Yeah.
Speaking of switched on, though, Janelle, who's on the gurney and in pain, it's like, why do I smell the ocean? And then we pan from Janelle to the ocean, because sure enough, the water just wants to return to the ocean.
She's gone all the way from the hills to the ocean,
Yeah.
which may not
I mean, that's...
feel that far.
I biked there yesterday in GTA. It wasn't that far.
Okay. All right, so Janelle's safe.
Yes. We're going to go back to Athena, who
Back
is
to
now
Athena.
back on the streets and not happy about it.
Yeah, she's definitely doing the fake it till you make it thing.
I don't think it helps that when she arrives on the scene that Elaine has sent her to, Williams is one of the first officers who greets her.
Oh, this is really cute, though, this scene. I quite like it.
Oh, it's very
Or this
cute,
bit.
but I have a feeling that she's got negative associations with Williams because he was one of the first officers on scene after she was attacked.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, these two boys are just so desperate for Athena's approval. It's cute.
It is, yeah. They're like smiling at her and going, oh, hi. Good to see you back.
But yeah,
and she's
Vargas
just
is like, decided to kick it out here with the yard dogs, and she's like, well, someone's got to keep you puppies on a leash.
So they've been door knocking. They've got most of the residents cleared out, there are a few pack rats who are apparently, I'm guessing, going through their house and trying to decide what of their belongings needs to go with them. But there's one house where they know someone's home, but they won't come to the door. The neighbours have confirmed that somebody does live here, but nobody knows who it is. So Athena tells them to... she moves them on to a different neighbourhood. She says she'll wrap this up. And then Williams very sweetly says, "It's good to have you back." And then both of them just sort of stand there smiling at her, waiting for something.
It's adorable.
And she's just not having it. She's like, "You waiting for a treat? Go."
Yeah. I just gave you an order. Get out of here.
Bless.
So Athena knocks on the door, announces that it's LAPD, and then she spies a curtain moving in the window. So she's like, "Yep, I know someone's home. I saw you in the window. Open up."
So poor Sylvia. I'm going to use her name because we find it out. Reluctantly opens the door. She's like, "Oh, officer, how can I help you?" And Athena's like, "You're under a mandatory evacuation order." And she's like, yes, I'm just getting ready to leave. And she tries to close the door on Athena, and Athena just barges her way into the house.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can do that, ma'am, but
yeah, well, Sylvia even says to her, "You can't just come in here." And Athena says that she has to make sure that Sylvia isn't under any kind of duress. And it turns out Sylvia kind of is under her own duress.
She's under duress, but it's of her own making.
It's herself who's duressing herself. I don't even know if that's a word, but anyway, she says she can't go outside. It's not safe out there.
I do like how they had Athena realize what was going on. She's trying to get Sylvia to leave, and Sylvia's like, "Oh, okay, I've got to go get my shoes." So Athena just grabs a pair of shoes and like, "Here, let me help you put these on." And as she's holding them out to Sylvia, she notices that the soles of the shoes are brand new. There's not a mark on them. There's not a scuff on them. It's like nobody's worn them. And she realizes that those shoes have never been outside, and asks, like, "When was the last time you went outside?" And Sylvia's like, "Yeah, never."
Yeah, it's been 7 years since she left the house. And Athena's like, "Yeah, you weren't going to evacuate, were you?" And Sylvia's like, "It's not safe out there." And it's like, "Honey, it's not safe in there either."
I have a feeling that it's probably safer out there than it is in there, but you'll figure that out shortly. We get a quick exchange between Bobby and May. I don't know who called who, but Bobby is finishing up at the bus scene, and he's telling May on the phone that not to be scared. And May is freaking out because she's obviously been following through dispatch and noting where everyone is, and realised that her mother is out where there is a potential landslide. So she's worried, and Bobby's like, she's probably just helping with the evacuations. And May is worried. She's asking Bobby, "Don't you think it's too soon for her to be out there?" And Bobby tells her, "Your mum is just doing her job, and I'm sure that she would want you to be doing the same thing." And he takes a beat and he goes, "Actually, no, she still wants you to quit."
But just then there's a beeping noise at the computer, and May tells Bobby that she's got to go. And so they do. There's a little symbol on the screen, and it actually says next to it, "Motion detected, Mount Lee." And then I think later Josh actually
which
says,
means absolutely nothing to us. I'm wondering, any of our US listeners, did you know what Mount Lee was at that point? Because we had no clue. Well, I had no clue. I don't know, maybe you guys had a clue.
Oh, I just figured it was
have any idea.
that they detected movement in because of an earthquake or whatever, so it made sense. They were detecting a landslide.
Oh yeah, it made sense, but you didn't have the connection that Mount Lee was the Hollywood sign.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
So that's why I'm wondering, does everybody, is it common knowledge that the Hollywood sign is on Mount Lee?
Ah, I see.
So Athena and Sylvia have a bonding moment where they talk about the fact that they're both scared, but they're both going to be really brave, and they're going to do the thing that scares them. Athena is going to go to work. Sylvia is going to leave the house. And that's literally it.
Yeah, apparently Sylvia, she works at home, but she gets up every day and gets dressed and puts on makeup and everything. It's a game that she plays with herself to promise herself that one day she might leave, and then she never does.
Athena's like, well, today's a really good day to do it because this hill's about to come down the hill, to come down by itself. So, you know, it's going to take you with it unless you actually leave right now. So we cut back to dispatch where Josh and Maddie have joined May and are staring at that little blinking motion detector, where Josh informs May and us that it's a motion sensor on Mount Lee. Yeah, we kind of got that.
Thank you,
part,
Josh.
May.
Yeah, we worked that out already.
Maddie is a little bit more informative, where she tells us that Mount Lee equals Hollywood Hills, and the comm towers for there are some comm towers for 911 up on those hills. May is a little bit worried because not only are the comm towers up there, but her mother is up there. So they're worried, like, there's a motion detector going off because there's another quake. Josh is like, I'm not feeling anything. It might just be trespassers. Let's take a look. And they turn on the camera and the sign is moving.
Yeah, actually swaying back and forth. It's like,
and as those three are staring at the Hollywood sign moving backwards and forwards, Athena has managed to convince Sylvia to leave, poor woman. So she opens her door. She gets 1 foot outside, and then she immediately says, no, I can't do this. And then Athena slams her back into her house as the house goes sliding down the hill. Breaks off from the cliff, and there's nothing but the curb with the number of the street left.
Like, there's just bits of the front of the house remaining.
Yep. You would not think there was a house there anymore. And
that's what you get for building your house on stilts on the side of a hill.
Exactly. And meanwhile, on Mount Lee, the Hollywood sign is now the Hollywood sign.
Yeah.
Because the H has completely fallen over. And the O and the L are a little bit askew as well. And that's where we leave it.
On a literal cliffhanger.
No, cliff slide. It's not hanging. It's not hanging. It's fallen.
Well, it kind of is. It's like
there is a cliff involved.
We don't know. We don't know that they're hanging on the side of the cliff, but they kind of are.
But yes, it's a very good spot to stop the episode.
Yeah, and before the credits roll, we have a picture of John Kemmler, who it's in loving memory of him. He died in 2020 of COVID. He was part of the production team.
He's one of the drivers.
So, yeah. Very sad. So yeah, great start to the season. That was my the total sum of my what I thought about this episode.
It is a good start to the season. It's a good season opener.
Yeah, I mean, it checked in with all of the characters and gradually showed us what's happening with this emergency in a way that wasn't too... Like, I mean, I guess they dragged out the emergency over the whole episode because they kept jumping back in time.
But then there's also two components to the emergency. So you start off thinking it's just going to be the reservoir breaking and the flooding. But then, no, it's not just that. We've now got the added component of the landslide, which, according to the promo for next week's episode, threatens a world-famous landmark. That's the most important thing about this, apparently, is that the Hollywood sign is a threat.
Is Athena Grant the...
She's the world-famous
She's the
world-famous landmark?
Let's continue. Let's find out.
Tune in next week.
It says, in the aftermath of the dam break, massive mudslides wreak havoc throughout Los Angeles. As Athena fights to save herself and an agoraphobic woman after her house collapses, Bobby, Hen, and Eddie rush to save hikers endangered by the falling of the Hollywood sign. Meanwhile, Buck and Chim must rescue a group of pregnant women who have been trapped in a submerged house.
Wow, they really are putting a lot of detail into these things this time.
Yeah. I wonder if they've got a new person writing the promos for season 4.
Yeah. We'll have
to
see if any stories have been cut out.
Well, they had a while to work out the storylines. So
Guess so, yeah.
Triggers for next week. We are continuing with the claustrophobia of being buried alive, but different person this time. We have depiction of childbirth, and we have more flashbacks to assault, more depictions of grief, kidnapping, which is an interesting one. Again with the natural disaster, but this time it's an earthquake causing a mudslide or a landslide. We have a man sinking into, they say quicksand. I don't think it's quicksand. I think it's just mud. But he's stuck in it and sinking fast. Depiction of mental illness, specifically agoraphobia and depression, and pregnant women and babies at threat. This one's not my favourite episode.
It's not.
That's not super fun, is it?
No.
No, there's a lot of I have seen it already. I won't say that. But there's a lot of like really tense situations that, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to say about episode 1?
I forgot how funny it was.
Yeah.
Like the elevator music thing. I laughed out loud because I totally forgot about that part.
Right. It had funny moments in between all the...
Yeah, like I think it was definitely like a light-hearted opening because next week's is not light-hearted.
It will not surprise anyone to know that this episode was written by Juan Carlos Corto, who I think does a really good job of balancing like funny interpersonal interactions with high tension of the disasters.
Yeah.
I always know that we're in for a good time when it's Juan Carlos Corto writing.
At least it's not a tsunami bit as well. It was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. Like it's hard to judge this episode because there's so much happening in season 4 that I almost want to rush through it, but I'm like, no, just enjoy the episodes as they come.
I think it's also difficult with the season openers in that there's always a sense that they have to one-up the previous season. And with the previous season being a tsunami, like, where do you go from there?
Yeah, and it's like, oh, it's a dam break. It's like, okay, that I don't care.
But then you also have to remember that much like Supernatural, this season got impacted. So I wonder what they would have planned. Like, were they always going to do this storyline?
Yeah, they would have had a few more episodes.
Or was it something that they came up with, like, shit, we have very restricted shooting capabilities. We have to completely rearrange it.
It's definitely interesting that they did, like, another sort of flood-y...
Another water-based emergency.
Like exactly the next season after the tsunami.
Yeah, well, no one had to get into any water, so obviously they couldn't go to Mexico to do their big Titanic tank thing.
I know, right? Thank God that they did the tsunami episodes the season before, because if they'd had it planned for this season, it would have never happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think that it's always really interesting around when there are real life events that have impacted stories. There's always that what could have been. If they didn't have the writer's strike, what could have happened in this TV show or that TV show? If they didn't have the pandemic, what could have happened? What storylines would have changed? What would they have done differently?
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Supernatural.
We're always side-eyeing Supernatural.
Because I think they did well for a like mid-pandemic episode with trying to minimize the amount of people on set and everybody being in bubbles and everything like that. I think that it doesn't come across as oh shit, we're on like bare bones here.
Yeah.
If you didn't know already that they were in the middle of a pandemic when they shot this, you possibly couldn't tell.
Yeah.
You would just think that they were referencing the pandemic.
Yeah, well done, 911.
Even if they did completely ruin the timeline of season 3 by focusing on the pandemic.
Yeah. we won't ask too many questions.
Oscar ate the timeline, and then they lost Oscar, so...
Yeah, that's right.
Justice for Oscar.
All right, so please do let us know what you thought about this episode. Are you excited for season 4? Don't tell me any spoilers though, but you can generally express your excitement on what's to come.
Yeah, very generic, non-specific excitement.
That's right. You can leave
Can't
comments.
wait for when the blank blanks blank. It's going to be great.
Okay, just tell us what you thought about this episode then. Don't give us anything. Leave a comment on Spotify or on the blog post on thatweewooshow.com. Or you can email us, and other ways. Just go to the website and everything's there. Thank you very much for listening this week, and we will see you next time for episode 2, which is called Alone Together. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
911 is a fictional show, but many of the situations portrayed happen in the real world too. If any of the topics we've discussed in this episode have affected you, please know you're not alone. You can call or text numbers in your country for help. Just Google crisis support in your location to find out the number. If you enjoy our podcast, you can help us out by leaving us a review on Spotify or your preferred listening app, and by sharing our social media posts. Find out more at thatweewooshow.com.
Like, yes, they were, like, mirroring the real world, but I think a lot of it was also just COVID-safe practices on set as well.
They were busy ruining the Supernatural finale.
I was about to say, should we bring it up? And then Ellen just brought it up.
No, let's not. Let's not go
No,
there.
let's not.
I'll just start ranting again.
And
Still
while
salty
I
about it.
always enjoy hearing you rant, because it's usually me ranting, perhaps this is not the time nor the place.
No, that's okay. I've got another different show for that.
Yes.
Of which I have ranted liberally. Actually, if I went back and listened recently to our episode that we did like just after the finale, and we were just so upset about it.
Oh, you were so
Just
mad.
like,
It was great.
oh, so mad.
So if you
Anywho.
want to know Ellen's thoughts on the Supernatural season finale, check out the Mixtape Book Club podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which.
Like we were so like it was like the 3rd or 4th episode. It was like really early on.
Okay, there you
And
go.
before then we were like really hopeful about what was
You
coming.
were so hopeful. It was so cute to listen to, because I listened to like some episodes where you had like specific guests on. Like, I think the first episode I listened to was the one with Bending Signpost.
Oh yeah.
And then I went back to listen to it, and like the episode before the finale aired, you were like, oh my god, like it's airing this week, it's gonna be so good, like what do we expect from it, rah rah rah. And then the episode after, you were just like, yep, cool, so this fucking show and did this, and there's some books about it, who the fuck cares.
Yeah.
It was great. 10 out of 10. Would listen again.
It was a time. It was definitely a time. Speaking of a time, 2020